Hi there. Very intriguing news just came out. George R.R. Martin officially announced that they're developing another Game of Thrones prequel project as a Broadway stage play, specifically about the Great Tourney at Harrenhal. This is the event that sparked off Robert's Rebellion and set the entire plot of the A Song of Ice and Fire novels into motion. This is the opening event of the whole story, when Jon Snow's parents, Rhaegar and Lyanna, met each other, and a lot of the older characters are going to be in this, like Robert Baratheon, Oberyn Martell, Ned Stark and his siblings. And this is amazing, a Broadway stage play? This isn't a pitch or something, this is confirmed that they're going to move forward with this. It's due by 2023, so coinciding with House of the Dragon Season 2. And after the pandemic and everything, I think the Broadway and international theater stuff will be in a much better shape by then. This isn't next year, this is year after next year. News first broke in Hollywood Reporter. The official synopsis of the play is, "The play will for the first time take audiences deeper behind the scenes of a landmark event that previously was shrouded in mystery. Featuring many of the most iconic and well-known characters from the series, the production will boast a story centered around love, vengeance, madness, and the dangers of dealing in prophecy, in the process revealing secrets and lies that have only been hinted at until now." And George R.R. Martin released his own official statement. Quote, "The seeds of war are often planted in times of peace. Few in Westeros knew the carnage to come when highborn and small folk alike gathered at Harrenhal to watch the finest knights of the realm compete in a great tourney during the year the false spring. It is a tourney oft referred to during HBO's Game of Thrones and in my novels A Song of Ice and Fire, and now at last we can tell the whole story on the stage." An amazing team has been assembled to tell the tale, starting with producers Simon Painter, Tim Lawson, and Jonathan Sanford. Their knowledge and love of my world and characters has impressed me from the very first, and their plans for this production blew me away since the first time we met. Dominic Cook, our director, is a former artistic director of London's Royal Court Theatre, who brought Shakespeare's drama of the War of the Roses to television. Martin has often said that A Song of Ice and Fire is a loose fantasy retelling inspired by the English Civil Wars, the War of the Roses. Yorks and Lancasters, Starks and Lannisters, Shakespeare's dramas of the War of the Roses to television, and our playwright, Duncan Macmillan, has previously adapted George Orwell and Henrik Ibsen, among others. Working with them back before the pandemic, when we could actually get together, remember that, has been a treat, and I am eager for our collaboration to resume. Our dream is to bring Westeros to Broadway. It's not just going to be to Broadway, it's going to be an international play. It'll be to Broadway in New York, to London's West End Theatre, and to Australia, 3 major locations. So to Broadway, West End, to Australia, and eventually to a stage near you. It ought to be spectacular. So this is a lot to take in, branching out like this. But one question this did solve is, a couple of weeks ago, a couple of news sites were reporting on this, that something mysterious was being posted on a producer's website. I didn't report on it because there wasn't really much to go on yet. This appears to have been solved. That we couldn't figure out that one of the agents, one of the major people listed as producers on Martin's stuff, like Game of Thrones, is Vince Gerardis. He's the agent that handles Martin's side of things. And he has been updating his website for things like House of the Dragon. But a few weeks ago, Vince Gerardis' website was updated for this mysterious new project. It listed A Song of Ice and Fire by The Works. And when this leaked out in the press, when they noticed, hey, what the heck is A Song of Ice and Fire by The Works, he quickly took it down from his website. So apparently it was something real that wasn't meant to be leaked yet. And we kept thinking, what is The Works? Is that the name of some animation company? What is that? Well, it turns out that those two theater producers on the theater side of things, Simon Painter and Tim Lawson, for this stage play, their production company is named The Works Entertainment. So, apparently, mystery solved. This is what Vince Gerardis' website was referring to. I didn't figure this out. Westeros.org figured this out in their analysis of this news release. So that is at least one weight off my mind. Oh, wait, what the heck is The Works? They were referring to the stage play. A broader question this brings up is, what does this mean for the Robert's Rebellion TV show spin-off pitch, which they announced only a little more than a month ago? Well, what are the current spin-offs? The first wave of spin-offs they announced, the spin-off pitches, they weren't confirmed, was back in the middle of 2018. They said we're considering 5 different pitches. And this is the old HBO regime where they never told us anything, because, well, if we have a bad idea, you'll complain about it. Then maybe you shouldn't have bad ideas. So they started with 5 pitches. 2 were rejected in the pitch phase. They didn't go forward. 3 advanced to the point that Martin said that there are still 3 prequels in contention as of August 2019 that haven't been canceled. That they had story bibles and writing staffs, and the first one was actually filming a pilot at the time. The Long Night prequel pilot, Blood Moon, which was canceled almost as soon as they saw the rough cut of the pilot, because it was really bad. And everyone said since day one, this is a terrible idea. It isn't based on any of Martin's actual prequel novellas. The other prequels, like House of the Dragon, have novellas they're based on. This has nothing. Martin never even intended to set a prequel then. It's something HBO made up on their own because they wanted to cash in on White Walker hype and catchphrases. The short version is, oh, well, it's the origin of the Starks. Go with that. Versus this really well-told civil war between 2 Targaryen factions. That, it's an established book. Oh, we don't want to do that. But we don't have a story for the origin of the Starks. It could be told in a paragraph. Oh, we'll just make something up. And while we're at it, for brand name recognition, let's throw in the origin story of the Lannisters, even though they're unrelated. And I've talked about this in this whole 2-hour-long summary video I made. Check out my channel under my playlists for Long Night. At the summary video, everything we ever knew about the Long Night prequel, and it was cartoonishly racist, because they didn't think, wait a minute, maybe that's a bad prequel era to adapt because it doesn't have any racial diversity. And then at the last minute they said, oh, let's shove in black people this way, and it made no sense and was really offensive. So this is something so abhorrent that as soon as they saw it, they said, we are not giving you a second chance, and we are willing to take a loss, a total loss, on a $15 million pilot. That we can't reuse any of the props for other prequels because it's such a different time period. That Long Night was that bad. Everyone since day one from the book fandom, I'm saying major fan sites, Westeros.org was saying, this is a terrible idea, you're going to waste money and you're going to waste a whole year of production. This doesn't reflect HBO now, you understand, that this was the old HBO leadership that trusted Benioff and Weiss picked this. The new HBO leadership are the ones who said, yeah, we're going to cancel this bad idea by someone else and go with the best of Martin's prequel novellas, the longest one, the one for the Dance of the Dragons, and turn it into House of the Dragon. That was the second prequel pitch, was the story of the Dance of the Dragons. They're starting a bit earlier than the actual war, though, to show, okay, well, this is why Rhaenyra and her stepmother Alicent came to hate each other. Yeah, building up the characters, that's the smart idea, that's how I would do it. That was the second idea. The third idea, which had advanced to having story bibles and stuff, was the Doom of Valyria, the Fall of Valyria, which was confirmed by their staff linguist, David Peterson. He said he had just been hired by them, and then they said, we're putting it on pause because we're doing House of the Dragon. It was never formally canceled, like they said when the other 2 were canceled, but it wasn't picked up either, so that's like in limbo now. As for the 4th and 5th pitches, we never knew what they were, but given Martin said that 2 major ideas came from his Fire and Blood book, were reasonably confident that the fourth idea was Targaryen conquest, and they passed on it because it's too similar to House of the Dragon, which I agree, that it's basically fighting with dragons in Westeros. It overlaps too much. I want to see that, just not at the same time as Dance of the Dragons. And we have no idea what the fifth pitch was. That was before. That's 2018, 2019. Then earlier this year, 2021, they announced more prequel pitches in 2 waves, 2 announcements. In the first announcement, they said, we're considering pitches, these aren't confirmed, for The Tales of Dunk and Egg, Robert's Rebellion, and an animated project. Now, Dunk and Egg is great because it's the only prequel that's been fully narrativized. The other ones are in-universe history textbook outlines. Dunk and Egg is a story. It's been adapted into graphic novels. It's really good. It was the first prequel ever made. It started in the 1990s, so it's very popular. So people are excited about that. Given its episodic structure, because there's time skips between novellas, I really hope they do that as like TV movies with a limited theatrical run. Like that could work, as it's better as a high-budget 2-hour movie than padding it into a TV show. Structurally, it doesn't make much sense that way. And that way we get to have the EGOT. Emmy, Grammy, Oscar, Tony. That we get the Oscar for Dunk and Egg. We get the Tony for the Robert's Rebellion play. But anyway, they said, we're considering Dunk and Egg, Robert's Rebellion, and an animated project. And the Robert's Rebellion show has Bruno Heller attached, who was the showrunner on HBO's Rome. Then, just last week, they made another batch of announcements. They said we're considering The 9 Voyages of Corlys Velaryon, a Flea Bottom show, which is the big slum in King's Landing. And I actually think both of these 2 shows would be a tie-in to House of the Dragon. That Corlys Velaryon is a character in House of the Dragon. These are like the adventures of young Corlys. It gets to show his voyages where he goes to fantasy China. That's a good idea. Flea Bottom, we don't really know, and it might be in different time periods, but another major character in House of the Dragon, Daemon Targaryen, in his youth, he rose to be the captain of the city guards. And he was known as the Lord of Flea Bottom because he was sort of this cowboy cop, also corrupt in that he killed all the criminals, then took over their rackets to keep crime as a whole down. So he was the Lord of Flea Bottom. So what if they have this as following some of the side characters of Daemon, like his friends in the City Watch in the TV show House of the Dragon, basically getting their own spin-off, where he's a peripheral character, like a young Daemon and Flea Bottom show. That ties into House of the Dragon. And the third pitch here, in the second batch, was Nymeria and the 10,000 Ships of the Rhoynar, which would be the rise of Valyria, where the Rhoynar are sort of like their version of the Greek city-states, that this is when Valyria wiped out the Rhoynar, and the survivors fled across the sea and got in all these adventures in Sothorios, which is fantasy Africa, and eventually ended up in Dorne. So this is the origin story of Dorne, and a chance to do Dorne the right way, that if the Game of Thrones TV show was the Whedon cut of Dorne, this would be our Snyder cut of Dorne. And people going, why would we want another Dorne show? Well, why would you want another Justice League or Superman project after Whedon ruined it? You know, like, well, why do we want new shows? Why did we want new Batman after Schumacher's Batman and Robin? Well, because we want it done the right way. The chance to redeem it by starting over with new writers. So this year, 2021, they announced 6 new prequel pitches. Nothing confirmed, just unlike the old HBO leadership, they're willing to tell us honestly and transparently, these are pitches we are considering. But I caution that even though they announced 6, I really think one of the other ones is the animated project. That one of those 6, they said, well, something animated. And I think it's very probably Nymeria and the 10,000 Ships. Because the animated one was announced alongside Dunk and Egg and Robert's Rebellion, so those 2 probably aren't animated, and they shouldn't be, because they're relatively cheap to do. And They said Bruno Heller was attached to the Voyages of Corlys Velaryon, so because he's attached, that's probably live action. Why would you do Flea Bottom animated? I mean, it's really cheap to do in live action. It's just a slum district. Anyone could do that. Versus just looking at the cost. Nymeria and the 10,000 ships. I mean, there's all these exotic locations. The war between the Rhaegar and Valyria, where the climactic battle, Valyria sends 300 dragons in a single battle, and they're fighting water wizards that the Valyrians have fire magic, the Rhaegar have water magic, they're calling up water spouts and stuff, and it's just, there's so much CGI you would need with that. With 300 dragons, I strongly suspect Nymeria is the animated project. I'd be surprised if it wasn't. So that's more like 5 new spin-off ideas that they have announced. And the old Doom of Valyria idea, which was never formally cancelled, is in the limbo, but they haven't mentioned that again. But the confusing thing is that Deadline's new article announcing Corlys, Fleabottom, and Nymeria, when it mentioned the first wave of spin-offs announced this year, it mentioned Dunk and Egg and an animated project, but it curiously didn't mention Robert's Rebellion. Okay, maybe they just forgot to mention it, but in the same thing, it said that Bruno Heller is attached to do Corlys Velaryon, when in the first wave of announcements, they said that Bruno Heller was himself attached to do Robert's Rebellion. I don't think he could be doing both. You know, it's not unusual for a major producer to pitch more than one thing and then be happy when one of them gets picked up. It's possible he just pitched 2 things. But how could he be attached to 2 major projects, Corlys Velaryon's Voyages and Robert's Rebellion? So that has led to some speculation that the Robert's Rebellion TV show spin-off has been shelved, and that they sort of retooled the pilot script as a stage play, because this is the opening act of what led to the rebellion. Or has it? Maybe that's not true, because on the other hand, look at the exact wording of what Martin said in his press release, that he had been discussing making this stage play with these Broadway producers since before the pandemic. He mentions, I was talking with these theater producers face to face before the pandemic. So, you know, we hear about these projects weeks and months after things are already in motion. We're pretty far down the pipeline, that things are happening behind the scenes right now we don't know about. So this was all already in motion. And because the Broadway play was being discussed for over a year ago, I don't think that really had anything to do with whether or not the Robert's Rebellion TV pitch got picked up. It's possible Martin is pushing it and openly announcing it now, even though they're only just starting to, put production and a cast together. Casting hasn't even started yet. Maybe Martin's pushing it now because the Robert's Rebellion TV pitch is on hold but not canceled, and this would be a great idea to drum up more support for it, to have a successful stage play. Would, give a kick to pushing the Robert's Rebellion TV show. I'm not sure. And I didn't think they were going to do Robert's Rebellion as the immediate next prequel to coincide with House of the Dragon anyway. They said they're going to do what Star Wars did. They're going to have multiple TV shows running at the same time. I'm not sure if Robert's Rebellion is one of the first they do. And even then, it's not a full series. Even if you continue it and pad it out, that it starts with the tourney at Harrenhal, the second season is the war, and you pad it out so the third season follows up on that by showing events through the Greyjoy Rebellion, you're looking at most a 3-season TV show. And I would enjoy that, but it's not like a flagship, so I have no idea. This is all speculation, but the questions are, Bruno Heller used to be attached they said he's attached to Robert's Rebellion, now he's on Corlys Velaryon. And wait a minute, you've been developing this stage play for over a year. This isn't in reaction to the other guy suddenly leaving. So even I don't know what's going on. There's a couple of potential answers, but Even if they did pass on the Robert's Rebellion TV show, a successful stage play would revitalize interest in it. So I'm not too worried about that on the scale of 5 to 10 years. We'll probably get a Robert's Rebellion TV show. Like, if they cancel the Nymeria thing, I don't think we'd see that again. But Robert's Rebellion with a successful stage play, yeah. And this isn't a musical or anything. I mean, there might be musical numbers in it, in universe, much like a Shakespeare play about the War of the Roses. There are points when, like, a court jester will sing a song during them, if you've ever seen one of these. But it's just one song. Like, Rhaegar Targaryen is a really good musician, and he plays a harp so tragically in this sad song that it brings Lyanna Stark to tears. Like, there'd be a point where Rhaegar is playing a harp and singing a sad song or something. But it's not Hamilton, you understand. It's not a musical as such. It's like The Crucible. It's drama play. And I'm annoyed at the irony. I live in the greater New York City area, and I usually go into Manhattan to, like, watch movies at theaters in Times Square. Before the pandemic, the last movie I saw was I went to Times Square to see Birds of Prey, just because it was out, and I realized everything's going to lock down. This is, February of 2020, that this is the last chance I have to see a movie for a while. So, and it's what was out, and it was a decent movie. So, I go past Broadway all the time to go to movie theaters, to go to work, at different jobs I have, just going through, that's where one of the subway hubs is. And I can't really afford Broadway tickets. If some of you, it's weird that a lot of you are, like, in different countries. You go, wow, I live in the New York City area. Surely I saw Hamilton on Broadway. What, like I could afford tickets to Hamilton? Yeah, I saw Hamilton when it came out on TV, but I can't afford first-run Broadway tickets. Now, if you're unfamiliar with this, let me do a quick rundown. If you want to know what characters would be in the events at the Tourney of Harrenhal, obviously all the younger characters haven't been born yet. Jon Snow is a glint in Rhaegar's eye. Robb Stark hasn't been born yet, nor is Daenerys. So who is there? Mad King Aerys Targaryen and his son, Crown Prince Rhaegar. I don't think the middle son, Viserys, would be there. He's a small child. He stayed at King's Landing. All 4 of the Stark siblings of this generation were there. Brandon the Elder, then Eddard Stark, then Benjen and Lyanna. All 4 of the Stark siblings were there. Howland Reed, who is one of the Stark bannermen, who is also the later father of Meera and Jojen. In the books, Meera is the one who narrates what happened. She tells Bran the story of what happened to his uncle Brandon, as it was told to her by her father Howland. Who else was there? Robert Baratheon, Lyanna's betrothed. Renly was just a small child at the time, so I think he was still at Storm's End. And I don't think Stannis was there, because he's not one for parties. Jaime Lannister was there, because this is where the Mad King made a big public ceremony of swearing him into the Kingsguard. He'd been announced that he would join the Kingsguard like a year before, but this is where he formally dubbed him into the Kingsguard. Tywin and Cersei explicitly weren't there, because when he announced, I'm going to make your eldest son and heir join the Kingsguard and give up his inheritance, Tywin was so insulted he went back to Casterly Rock. This is all this thing by teenage Cersei that she wanted Jaime to stay with her, and they were going to betroth Jaime to Lysa Tully. To get out of it, she said, I'll keep him with me by convincing the Mad King to have him join the Kingsguard and stay in King's Landing all the time. Not realizing this will make your father leave and bring you with him. He brought Cersei back to Casterly Rock, and Tyrion was a very small child at the time. He's just a 4-year-old and 9-year-old in Casterly Rock at the time of the war. So they're not really in it. A stage play doesn't switch locations that much, but I think to tell the story of why is this happening, they'd probably start with, and here's the Mad King in King's Landing, like a Henry V switches between London and Paris, so they can't do that many location shifts, and here's Tywin's office in the Red Keep, being angry that the Mad King just said Jaime's been named to the Kingsguard and going, young teenage Cersei, let's leave. But she would be there as at best a cameo. I think Tywin and Cersei would be in as cameos, probably, to tell the whole story. But the big person who was actually present was Jaime Lannister. Also, Barristan Selmy, because he was a Kingsguard. Barristan was there. All the other Kingsguard, like Arthur Dayne. Probably the Mad King's small council, such as Pycelle and Varys. Varys had just joined the small council, and he's the one who told the Mad King, I think Rhaegar is going to try to recruit lords against you at this tournament. You should probably go to keep an eye on him. Which backfired, because then everyone at the tournament saw how insane he had become, that he looked disheveled like a crazy, and he was acting like a crazy man. Other people stated to be there. Oberyn Martell, the Red Viper, young Oberyn was there, on account of the fact that Rhaegar's wife, Elia Martell, was his own sister. And, he's going like, why is my brother-in-law handing the victor's crown to another woman, Lyanna Stark? What is going on here? Also present was Mace Tyrell. Loras and Marjorie were only infants at the time. They wouldn't be there. It doesn't mention if Mace's mother, Olenna, came, but it doesn't say she didn't, and I don't see why she would miss such a big social event, as this is the biggest tournament in years, possibly ever, that all the great lords and ladies of the realm came to. Why wouldn't Olenna come with her son? I'm going through the list of the 9 great houses here. There's 3 left. The books don't explicitly mention the Greyjoys, Arryns, or Tullys being there. Greyjoys probably wouldn't there. They don't do horse riding. They don't do jousts. And even then, none of Balon Greyjoy's children were born yet. This generation was... Balon's old father was still in charge at the time, and it's Balon and his brothers Euron and Aeron. They wouldn't come to a joust, so that wouldn't be mentioned. It doesn't say that Jon Arryn came to this, but I'd be surprised if he didn't, because again, it was such a big tournament. Why not, a stage play could just go, oh yeah, and there's Jon Arryn there, not that he plays a major role, but just to point him out. But I consider it very probable that the Tullys came too, because they're the overlords of the Riverlands. Harrenhal is one of their biggest bannermen, and they're just a short trip between Riverrun and Harrenhal, compared to that people came to this from Old Town, from the Reach, from the Vale. The Starks came to this. Why wouldn't the Tullys come to this event within their own domain? So I'm pretty sure the Tullys came to this. So it's very probable that young Catelyn, her sister Lysa, and her brother Edmure were all there as well, along with their father's ward, a young Peter Baelish, son of a minor vassal from the Vale. The TV show had Littlefinger be the one to give the story of the tourney at Harrenhal, him telling it to Sansa. He said he was there in the TV show. The books never state that, though it's probably not wrong. I mean, the Tullys probably went there, and he was a ward of the Tullys at the time, so it's not a total contradiction, but I personally dislike that scene, the way it was played and shot. That they're just showing off the Littlefinger actor doing his snidely whiplash routine instead of being a real villain who's friendly to people then betrays them. That just this turned into a caricature over time. So on paper, it's not a bad idea that a Littlefinger would know what happened there. But recognize this is a scene they took away from Meera Reed. Like she just disappears in season 8, that there's this big scene in the books where she narrates, this is what happened at the tourney at Harrenhal. Thankfully, they at least had the decency to give her one of those animated bonus videos in the Blu-rays, the Histories and Lore. There's this really good animated in watercolor, so it seems like a memory, story of the tourney at Harrenhal, narrated by Meera Reed. I'm going to load that up on my channel because it's one of the better ones, and they owed that to Meera. And the stage play might also continue up to the point where Rhaegar, quote-unquote, abducts Lyanna, which was months later. And in the meantime, right between that, I think a stage play might conclude with when Baelish challenges Brandon Stark to a duel over Cattle and Tully, and Brandon injures him so badly he nearly kills him, and he spends a year recuperating. Because it was right after the duel they heard, Rhaegar has abducted Lyanna, so Brandon rode off from his... they were planning his wedding to Cattle, and he rode off to go, I have to save my sister from this. I'm not sure when the actual start and end points of this are, but you can play around with that. That's pretty much what we'll see in this. And I want to conclude with the real point of why I made this video. Why a stage play is a brilliant idea.